What happens when you turn up for your Camino and your luggage doesn't? Welcome to Footnotes, Camino Edition. I'm Meg, and today I'm walking and talking with Jasmine, who's just finished her third Camino. We'll get right into all the very real details of the Camino de Santiago, the truth about albergues, bookings, bunks, paper sheets, communal meals, and the secret lesson Jasmine learnt about Camino snoring. Let's get into it.
You did it on the spur of a moment. You didn't have shoes. You bought some along the way.
Yeah.
Did you say your backpack didn't have one?
Yeah.
So you didn't have a backpack.
So my first time I did it, my backpack with everything that you meticulously prepare, you know what that's like. Everything down to I didn't weigh it or anything, but you're really careful with how much you take because you know you have to carry it. All of that backpack never arrived on the plane. It was stuck in Italy and I was at St. John Peter Port. I was literally at the starting town with nothing to walk in. And I walked the first 4 days across the Pyrenees in my Doc Martens boots, which was quite an experience in itself.
So then how did you get shoes? Get walking
Day
boots?
4 in Pamplona, I took a rest day and I had to buy everything brand new. And I went to the pilgrim shop, bought a backpack, bought shoes, bought socks, bought T-shirts, pants, everything brand new. Yeah, that was my first Camino. And that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to go back a second time and actually arrive with my things and have less stress when I was starting out. So that's probably why I would say to you when we've had that conversation around shoes, that I feel like you can't be too reliant on any individual thing. And I think that you just end up adapting it anyway. Because I've had what I thought was all the most perfect things. And then I arrived and my things didn't come. But I literally still crossed the Pyrenees in men's pants, I think a T-shirt from my dad, as I said, my Doc Martens boots because I refused to buy a new one.
Did you have a suitcase?
No.
What did you have?
No, I think I had a small carry-on suitcase, but I shipped it forward. No, I got gifted a backpack from a lady who was throwing it away. So I carried this secondhand backpack for the first few days with a few bits and pieces. And look, there was a lot of lessons in that in itself. And so I think that's why my relationship now with preparation around the Camino kind of really had to change very early on. And so I'm now I feel like you can go into it or any preparation because you ultimately have to learn to adapt to the circumstances. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's amazing. So just talking about preparation, so you obviously took a more spontaneous decision to go and
yes.
You got there and you didn't have anything that you needed. And yet you obviously still loved it and enjoyed it.
Yes.
Well, how did you book your whole Camino, or did you just literally start walking and follow the path?
Yeah, well, because I've done it a couple of times, I've taken some slightly different approaches and I've tried a few different ways. The first time I probably booked a little bit more, but it was more maybe booking a couple of days in advance. So I didn't have everything planned out, but I would know at least when I'd be starting that day, I knew that I had a bed. So that was the first time I at least took that pressure off myself and knew I've booked a bed. When I went back the second time, I did a little bit of planning, but actually started transitioning to really fully being spontaneous, walking, not knowing how far I was walking, not knowing which town I was going to, and arriving in the evening and going and finding a bed as soon as I arrived.
Did you ever have any trouble?
Yes, I did, but it was all part of the adventure. But I never got stuck. I never got stuck without a bed. It just sometimes maybe took a little bit longer, but no, never. Look, I had definitely challenges, but for me, it wasn't enough of a challenge that it made me want to throw in the towel.
Yeah, because I could imagine at the end of a long, hot day.
Oh, yes.
And then you can't find a bed. I would have thought that would have been super stressful.
It was.
And frustrating.
And there were times when I would arrive and I just wanted to cry and you're so tired and you're hungry and you're hot or you're cold or you're dirty and you just want to shower. But you know what? For me, I just tried to view a lot of that as part of the lessons and the experience. And so I was like, okay, well, this is happening now. So what am I going to do? And I just viewed it as a redirection each time. And I actually started enjoying it. It felt just like an adventure. It felt, all right, okay, well, no bed yet. What do I do now? And I think the beauty of some of the Caminos is there's such a beautiful community of people that whilst you might be traveling or walking alone, you're actually never really alone. And there's always people that are going to support you. And I truly think in those moments of those darker moments and those moments where you're really feeling challenged and down and out and wanting to throw in the towel, that's where some of the most magical and most beautiful moments can come about. So I wouldn't change it, but it's certainly not for the faint-hearted. You can obviously go through a travel agent who basically can map absolutely everything out for you. And you can also literally arrive to any starting point or walk out your door as well, just as easily, and figure everything out as you go. But I'd say the main kind of variables and key different options really probably comes down to accommodation, right? So you've got varying ranges, and it also comes down to budgets and the style that you want. But you obviously have upper end kind of hotels, which are fairly plentiful, but sometimes not always available in smaller places. And then you've got more like the pensiones or rural kind of stays that might be a bit more family run and still potentially private rooms, but not as fancy as a hotel. And then you have the lower end, which is like the bit more of the classic and traditional style of the albergues, which is more or less just a fancy word, and that's the Spanish word for pilgrim hostels. So yes, like the hostels that you used to stay in backpacking as an 18 or 21-year-old, but really specifically set up purely for pilgrims, and that they also have people of all ages. So sometimes you'd have families with younger children all the way up to people sometimes in their 70s or 80s. So a really broad range, but generally they're much cheaper. You're generally in dorm rooms from, say, 4 people in a dorm room up to maybe 40 people in a dorm room. So there's a lot less privacy. It is a lot more basic, but it is also a lot more communal. And it's also, they can be a really good option if you're traveling solo and you want to feel part of a community. And also with the albergues, there's private and public. So again, the public ones are very basic, generally very cheap, and can be still very well run, but you go in there with lower expectations. You can't book those. They're first in, first served. So a lot of people rush to go to get their bed for, say, €10. Then you've got private albergues where there's people that are really passionate about creating a beautiful space and experience for people, and they might still be relatively cheap, like €15 a night, but they've actually curated a really different style and put a bit more heart and soul into it. And they might offer, say, a communal dinner in the evening, or they might do your laundry or have a yoga, or some of them have a pool. So there's kind of different options that you can really choose. So what was it like for you guys staying in hotels? Paint me a picture of hotel life on the Camino.
Yeah, so with the hotel, you knew when you woke up in the morning how many kilometres you had to walk and where you were walking to and where you should stop over for lunch. So we would be really grateful to get to our hotel at the end of every day, sometimes just collapse on the bed. So I think the first thing was always have a rest and have a little nap. And then often the hotels have a little bar. So we might go down to the bar and have a pre-dinner drink, and then either have dinner at the hotel or walk somewhere into a town and find somewhere for dinner, depending on what was booked. And then in the morning, nearly always the hotel would give breakfast. So can you give me step by step, what is it like to stay at an albergue? Because I was curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to know, 40 people in a room, what does that look like when you arrive somewhere?
Yeah. Well, again, so they're really different. So it depends on where you stay. But maybe if
just
I paint
a picture of one.
Yeah, a typical one would be, I'd say a typical one might be 12 people in a room. And basically you would arrive and they'd just say, allocate you to a bed, or you go and find a bed. They're pretty much always bunk beds. So there's always upper and lower, which can be a pain point, particularly if you're younger and more mobile. You're pretty much always expected to be up top, which can get very old very quickly. But there's often lockers in the room where you put your things. Basically, when you arrive, there's always a place to put your boots or your shoes out the front. You leave all your sticks out the front, and then you come into the space. And generally there might be like a communal kitchen, shared bathrooms, a little bit of a living area space, and then, your bunk bed dorms. Sometimes you might have to wait a little while to have a shower because there's not a lot of facilities. Sometimes it can be clean.
Okay, so paint me a picture of a bad experience.
Okay.
Just so I don't feel like I missed it.
Well, you know what? I didn't have too many bad experiences, but maybe a bad experience would be, okay, so you're going in and the mattresses are literally just like a blue kind of plastic foam mattress. There's no sheets. So you have to pay for like a paper sheet, which is only a bottom sheet. So it's like this disposable paper sheet that you put on the bottom. And that's basically it. That's your bedding. Oh, usually there's a pillow, but again, there'll be like a disposable pillow slit, and that's your bedding. And then you need to have your own sleeping bag liner or sleeping bag. And they often have blankets, but sometimes it can be very basic kind of facilities. Sometimes it can be really hot. There's a lot of people in the room. It can be stuffy. It can be stinky. There might be like men just like taking their shirts off and getting changed in front of you. People are tired. People are like drop their guard. People are popping blisters next to you. People are snoring next to you. Yeah, there's a whole range of experiences.
Do you eat together?
Again, that's a choice. Many places offer a communal meal, which is one of my favourite things about the albergues, because it's wonderful. You can just arrive and not worry about food. So you often pay around €15 for a 3-course meal, which usually, so entree, main and dessert and wine. And they basically just ask you if you want to sign up. And that's one of the best things. You come together and you basically eat a meal together, and that's where you get to.
So someone cooks the meal?
Yeah, generally the albergue owners cook the meal, and they've become so accustomed to it that actually a lot of the albergues become really famous for some of their meals. So I would often choose albergues that had a really good community pilgrim meal, and some of them might be vegan or vegetarian, or they might do like a paella. And so you knew that it was going to be a good dinner. So you'd be like, right, I'm going to stay there and sign up for that dinner. And then sit around basically with fellow pilgrims, introduce yourself, get chatting and share some break bread and share wine, essentially, and go to bed whenever you want.
Okay, but what about the snoring?
Snoring, yeah, interesting. Oof. Well, the first year that I went, it was absolutely horrific and I really struggled and I was getting so little sleep. The second time I went, I actually changed my perspective on it a little bit, and I tried to just let go a little bit of that, I guess, anxiety around the snoring. And you know what? It was actually really fine. And you take earplugs. I always take an eye mask. You try to be as prepared as you can. But I think if you go in with an open mind and expecting you may not get the perfect sleep, it works out. But yes, there's always noises. There's people getting up to go to the bathroom. There's people getting up early to pack up. And
That's what I was going to say, partying?
No, not partying's not, no. Getting to people to bed is not so much the issue. Everyone's pretty consistent in that respect and quite respectful generally, but you do get occasionally the people that'll be sitting on their bed FaceTiming on loud at 10 or 11 p.m. when everyone's trying to sleep, which is a bit rude. But generally everyone's really considerate, honestly, and that's where you start to realise the beauty in a lot of the people that are walking. Everyone's really trying to do the same thing and have a same positive experience. So if you kind of just respect their own experience, then it generally works out. Yeah. Hey, whilst the albergues can be cheaper and obviously they're more rustic and less luxurious, for me personally, I felt like it was worth it for them having that community. But I also agree with you that sometimes you just need a good sleep and sometimes you're exhausted. And so my strategy, and this is why everyone can choose their own adventure really, is like every maybe 1 or 2 weeks, I would book a private room and nothing.
At the albergue?
No, or at a hotel or a pension, or I'd book something like private so I could get a good sleep. And I would pay more for that and I'd be happy with that, having that experience every now and then. But it's very funny because there was one time I was so excited that I'd booked what I thought was going to be this really nice hotel and it was going to be a treat. And it was like, 10 days in, and I thought, this will be perfect timing. I'll get some time to myself. And I hated it. And then I was by myself and I'd paid so much more. And I thought, why didn't I just go to the public albergue around the corner? And I probably would have had a better time.
So to be specific, you hated it because you were on your own?
It was just a feeling. Like, it wasn't the being alone, because that's what I was there for. But I think it was maybe the vibe of the place. It was like, I wasn't able to, maybe it was, I was not able to share like about my experience with anyone. Yeah, it just didn't feel like it felt like the magic of the Camino had disappeared and I'd moved from a pilgrim to a tourist, essentially.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a pretty controversial statement.
No, but in that moment for me, right?
Yeah, for you. And no, I actually get it. Because sometimes I did get the feeling that there was a bit of a pilgrim hierarchy between the really rustic pilgrims. And I'd see them sometimes like, I was on a walking tour of Bilbao and the guide goes, and here come the Camino pilgrims. And these guys came down. They had wooden sticks as walking poles and beards. They just looked like you would expect a pilgrim to look, like really rustic. And then in the walking tour, the guides were then asking us what we do. I said, well, we're pilgrims.
Yeah.
But he was like so shocked because like we just didn't look like the pilgrims, like the real pilgrims that were coming down, following the yellow arrows to the albergue, looking like completely grubby, hair growing, beard, absolutely like old backpack, so rugged. And yeah, sometimes I wondered, like, they felt like the real pilgrims. And because we stayed in hotels and ate at nice restaurants, I don't know. I wondered if other people thought we weren't real pilgrims.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, I know what you're talking about, but I actually didn't feel it so much. I really didn't feel it. I actually think it's a little bit of a myth because I don't recall anyone in the albergues bagging out on anyone staying at hotels. I didn't find that. But maybe it's also because we didn't cross paths with those people. The people maybe it's staying at albergues, you're a bit more like-minded perhaps.
Yeah.
But of course, there's still people that maybe pass a bit judgment or have their own opinions on people that catch taxis or a train for a portion or, yeah, it's, oh, you've got a private room. Maybe, but I actually found people are really open-minded and quite accepting of people's decisions.
Yeah, people doing it in different ways. I saw sometimes, say, a mother-daughter couple doing it and then the mother got terrible blisters, really incapacitated blisters, and she just was not able to go on. So she was catching a taxi from A to B and then still being with her daughter and meeting her daughter at the next place. And sometimes I could see people scoffing when the taxis would turn up before a hill and I could see people scoffing about it. But then when I met this woman that had to do it that way and still wanted to have that journey with her daughter and she just had to use a taxi. So it definitely made me more aware. There are so many ways to do it. And there isn't, I know some people like to think there is, but there probably isn't just one correct way.
I fully agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And the thing is, your way or the way that you choose to do it might change every day. And that's okay. So there might be days where you think, I want to be a full-blown traditional pilgrim and I'm going to throw caution to the wind and not know where I'm going or where I'm staying. And I'm going to eat from the supermarket and spend no money. Or there might be a day when you think, I actually feel like I needed some proper rest, a proper shower, a beautiful bed and a really nice meal and some nice wine. And I want to go out to a restaurant and that's okay. So it's like choosing your own adventure also along the way. It's not, well, this Camino, I'm doing it this way. You can change your mind over each day depending on how you're feeling, right? And I agree with you. I just don't think that you can't ever lose. Whichever way you choose to do it in that moment is perfect for you. And I think the fact that you're just showing up and you're there and you're wanting to have an experience like the Camino is perfect. Yeah.